Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Airspeed's Avatar Rewatch video. This one's going to be for Book 3 Fire Episode 11, The Day of Black Sun Part 2, the Eclipse. This one's animated by Moy Animation, which I thought was quite interesting that they gave the more important part of the two-parter to Moy. Whereas I almost feel what they maybe should have done is just kind of had JM do both of these episodes and then just have Moy maybe do two in a row later on down the line. But just it's not a problem or anything like that. It's just interesting to see the decisions made like that. But anyway, we'll move into the episode. One thing I didn't talk about in the last one, I don't know how I forgot. I guess you could probably tell by the video quality, the lighting, that I recorded it fairly late, so that might account for it. But anyway, I didn't talk about the Katara and Aang kiss scene, and just in general the goodbye scene. It's a scene I really like because it's obviously their goodbye to each other in a scene where they may not see each other again type thing, depending on how the battle goes. And I think you know with both characters that there's kind of stuff that they haven't told each other about how they feel about their kind of relationship, which is beginning to become more and more kind of closer together. So I kind of like the idea that Aang just kind of usually tends to kind of run away from all these type of things, but here, like the headband and him asking Katara for the dance, is a kind of unexpected moment almost of Aang being forward and just kind of going for the kiss and leaving. And I like what it does because it shows you that, Katara didn't immediately just back off and be like, whoa, 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 what was that about? She, blushes at the end, and it's kind of like the kind of expression on her face is kind of just maybe wasn't expecting it, but that it's something that she, obviously has thought about before. Hence, go back to the Cave of Two Lovers. She was the one to actually bring up the idea of them kissing back then, and here it is actually happening here. So, becomes an interesting kind of point within their relationship going forward that this has happened, and it was for the most part kind of a positive thing, but it's now kind of about I suppose Katara focusing more on kind of the priorities that they have right now, whereas for Aang he kind of more sees this as this should be the first step in their relationship, and he kind of gets frustrated a little bit going forward that they don't really talk about it until the series is actually over. But anyway, that's that scene. Very well done. So this episode, it's interesting because obviously it's the one the eclipse happens in. It's got the really, really important scenes in it, and immediately you get obviously Aang returning and revealing to everyone that the Fire Nation capital is empty, and this is where they all figure out that they knew something's going wrong here, and because they're all here, they just kind of all commit to going ahead with the plan, even if they are walking into some sort of a trap, because everyone's here to take down the Fire Nation. And in a way, the invasion has been going so well up to now. I think they sort of think that what could happen that goes so wrong for them that it would just end the invasion. So I think they go ahead because they haven't met that much resistance, so they're sort of okay with okay, we accept that something is going to be a big challenge coming up, and they go ahead and walk into it, while acknowledging that, okay, that means Ozai's probably hidden around here somewhere, so we have to get Aang to him, and that's where they kind of split off the teams. It's Sokka, Toph, and Aang going in search of Ozai, and then it's Bato kind of takes control of the main force, with kind of Hakoda and Katara there also. The main kind of adult leader characters like Tyro and so on leading. And the eclipse actually happens, and they really quickly rush through the palace. And basically the invasion force takes control of what they wanted to take control of. It's just that the main group is our main characters are still trying to find Ozai. And it's obviously here where the Azula reveal happens, that we know as the audience that she knows about it, and so she obviously has relayed this to them. They're prepared for the invasion, and I suppose it's just the extent to which that the group is completely unprepared for what the Fire Nation had ready for them, which is obviously the big reveal of the airships by the end, which is a great callback back to like 117, the Northern Air Temple in Warminster Kin, who we see in this episode. He discovers the balloon, and obviously that technology goes into the balloons that they have, plus the warships, the airships that they have. It's just a clever use of a specific character who's like the kind of technology guy of the Fire Nation, plus just a sudden reveal of like air power being like really key in this battle, something Fire Nation haven't had before, but now they have it, and that makes them so much more of a threat. And because I suppose what's later revealed that the ultimate plan to defeat the Earth Kingdom involves these airships, it becomes all the more bigger of a threat. But it also, I think, looking into the past kind of makes you think like, okay, so this kind of explains that like with the Air Nomad genocide, because they didn't have any air power, they had to basically rely on someone like an Afiko giving them secrets to the Air Nomads to actually like ambush them in the way that they did. So I think that's just a little interesting dynamic that they added. But we get some great moments here. The fight between like Toph, Sokka, and Aang versus Azula and the Dai Li is really well animated. You get Aang doing some awesome moves where he kind of combines air and earth bending, and he's just kind of really smoothly transitioning one into the other. You see Azula how like amazingly gymnastic that she is, how acrobatic she is in terms of just dodging because she has no fire bending. I don't know if we're meant to assume that just she is naturally acrobatic, or maybe she's learned from Ty Lee like how to be like extra like agile in this way. But just to see her dodge so many powerful benders like that, it's quite impressive. And you get the kind of joke of like everyone else is really agile with their bending abilities, and then Sokka's just trying to climb through the rock, so he's actually out of the battle for a lot of it, just walking around. Toph has a really good fight against a couple of Dai Li agents, showing how powerful she is. And I think for Aang, it shows his growth in that he struggled against Dai Li agents back in the Book 2 finale, but here he is actually like taking them on and winning against them. And it obviously leads to they corner Azula, and they're about to leave, acknowledging that she's just wasting their time, when the Suki reveal comes out that Azula has Suki as a prisoner. So that basically now reveals to us, exactly the full extent of like, okay, so I didn't just like kill Suki and the other Kyoshi warriors. They captured them. Obviously, we know they took their clothes, but here we get that, okay, she's imprisoned them. And she specifically is aware and has talked to Suki enough to be aware that Suki has a relationship with Sokka. And she uses that here to manipulate Sokka. And it's a pretty dark moment of that, just like she's planning to kill Sokka when he charges at her, which is kind of unexpected, like, just because I suppose bladed weapons for the most part tend to not really be used all that much in this series in like a threatening way. Even though like Sokka uses it as his main weapon and so on, most of the time you don't ever expect a character to actually get like hit with a bladed weapon. So just the threat of like she's going to stab him when he charges up to her. But just that Sokka knows that Suki's been captured and that's on his mind. And then I suppose for Sokka, like by the end of this episode, like his father, the whole army basically has been captured. It's a punishing defeat for everyone, and everyone kind of takes it hard in their own way. That for Aang, this was meant to be his big return where he made things right for, I suppose, some of the defeats in the past, and it goes wrong. For Sokka, this was his big like first leadership moment. It was his plan, and ultimately the plan failed, and as much as it wasn't his fault, there's still, I suppose, a lot of guilt to some degree that the kids are allowed to escape while the adults have to stay and surrender. So that's a really just interesting dynamic, and it's an interesting sacrifice, I suppose, that like Hakoda, Tyro, Bato make, that they're aware that they have to surrender here, that the kids are going to be the ones that have to escape. They shouldn't have to suffer the the horrors of being in prison, which I actually like in terms of like they're kind of acknowledging that like the kids are like the hope for the future, it's best that they not experience, I suppose, this cruel thing that a lot of people have experienced from like the current Fire Nation regime. Um, and it's just nice to see this kind of like extended team Avatar kind of escaping. It's our usual group plus like Haru, Teo, the Duke, and so on. Um, that that's our group that we have right now. Admittedly, they get rid of most of that group almost immediately, but it's still a nice one to just have like the younger group together by the end of the episode. And you have all those emotional goodbyes of like Haru saying goodbye to his father, Teo to his father, Katara and Sokka having to say goodbye again to Hakoda. Very, very emotional stuff, and then like Aang, I suppose, giving that speech just before they go, acknowledging how brave everyone was and how he will make it up to them. I like the little moment where he's kind of crying and kind of has his back to everyone, and then Katara comes up to him, and that kind of, I suppose, spurs him on to actually turn around and give the speech to everyone, kind of showing him developing into like the leader that the Avatar kind of needs to be. But still, it's a defeat, but there's kind of hope in the defeat, whereas there kind of wasn't at the end of book 2. And even though this is like arguably a bigger defeat, because this was their big plan, this is the plan since like the middle of book 2. This has been the one chance that they have, and now it's gone. The only option now is to, really face Ozai either before or after the comet, but obviously the wrinkle they add into that come the finale is that they don't know what Ozai actually plans to do during the comet. So if he's overly destructive with that, there's no point even waiting until afterwards, which ends up being what they do. But I suppose initially the plan is like just regroup and find some way to come back and take them out. The other side of the episode is Zuko and his conversation with Ozai, which is such a good scene. It's definitely one of the best scenes of the entire series, because they give it the time, they give it the importance, and they add so many little things into it that make it such a powerful scene. For one, it's obviously Zuko standing up to Ozai, but it's also like him bringing up, now realizing the fault of like Ozai and what he's done wrong all this time. He brings up stuff like, I now realize that I was just trying to please you, and I now realize that you banishing me for speaking out of turn, you like challenging me to an Agni Kai when I was so young and burning me because I didn't want to fight you, that's like wrong. That is like evil, basically. Why would I ever want to like please someone who did that to me? And just him pointing at the obvious that we've known for a long time, but seeing Zuko actually say it to him has a lot of impact of just, he's like, you burned me and it was wrong. You banished me and it was wrong. And just, I love how it kind of transitions from like him, I suppose, saying all this to Ozai to being like, and I also realize that the people of the world hate the Fire Nation, that we say to all of our people that it's like this prosperous place and, this is a just, I suppose, capture of the entire world, but they hate us. That we have to change quickly if we don't want the world to be in this incredibly dark place forever. And replace that era with love and kindness. And that's obviously when Ozai makes the point of like, your uncle's gotten to you. And it's one of the few points in the series where like Ozai makes any real mention of Iroh, and it again brings up the idea that we don't actually know anything about their relationship. We have no clue whatsoever. We've never seen the two of them interact before. And apart from, I suppose, understanding that the two of them are very different people, we don't get any sense for, like, was there a rivalry between the two of them? Here, it seems like Ozai, kind of like Azula, has no real respect for Iroh, but at the same time, that lack of respect doesn't allow him to see how incredibly powerful Iroh actually is. In that he thinks of Iroh as like the tea-loving guy, about peace and kindness, but can't see that Iroh's arguably like much more powerful than he is. He just doesn't show it or act like he's powerful in the same way that Ozai does, because he takes a different approach to the philosophy of firebending. But just the way the whole thing plays out of like, in the end, like Zuko fleeing after the eclipse comes back because he redirects lightning at Ozai. That Ozai's taken out here by a technique Zuko learned from Iroh. One that Ozai doesn't know, one that Azula doesn't know, and that's just really kind of fitting. And I suppose the other side of it is that it's ultimately based on like a waterbending technique. So he's kind of like the Fire Lord is kind of defeated by like a firebending technique that incorporates aspects of like other nations' philosophies into it, of like redirection. So that's just another little kind of symbolism little thing. But I love how Zuko's just about to leave. He basically just says, I realize my destiny, that I have to help the Avatar defeat you. It's his destiny to take you out. It's not mine. Because obviously Ozai goads him into basically killing him there and then. And I like how Zuko goes to leave while the eclipse is still on. And Ozai pulls him back in by mentioning his mother. Because it's one of the only times in like the entire series, the show, where we get a sense of Ozai's character outside of the fact that he is just a cruel villain. Because I think that's potentially one of the weaknesses of the series, that they build up Ozai so much, and all he is just, the typical leader guy in charge who's cruel and evil. But here you add in this layer of like, no, actually he's super manipulative as well. And it comes across more clearly with Azula, but you see with Ozai where it comes from with Azula, that she obviously learned that from someone, and it was Ozai. It's just we don't often see Ozai get the opportunity to, be that manipulative, but he is. And here, knowing Zuko's connection to Ursa brings it up right as he's about to leave to keep him there, to get that opportunity to like basically take him out now that he's kind of betrayed him. And it's clever for Ozai's perspective, but also extremely manipulative. And it's really interesting looking back on this episode now, having the search and us knowing the full story behind what Ursa did or did not do, that for the most part Ozai tells the truth here to Zuko, that everything he says up to a point is correct, that Ozai wanted the throne, Azulon wanted him to kill Ozai to kill Zuko, Ursa proposed a plan to get Ozai the throne that was basically a plan that was ultimately traitorous to the Fire Nation. The lie is ultimately the bit that like she did treasonous things that night, and to a degree she did, but it was Ozai who was the one who actually like committed the poisoning basically. Ursa just made the poison, Ozai gave it to him, and the idea was that as kind of a, ultimately like a, what's the exact wording for how to do this? Like, the deal, part of the deal was that Ursa leave. That it was a banishment to a degree, but it was kind of ultimately this kind of punishment that like for doing this to save them, you have to leave and can never come back. And it just, again, was this other layer added in because it spoke to the kind of how fractured the relationship was, and I think just another bit of Ozai being extra cruel because of what Ursa tried to pull, and so on. But it's it ultimately comes down to that whole thing of the letter that she sent to Ikem that Ozai like intercepted, that said that Zuko wasn't Ozai's son, and I think this was another bit of him trying to like get one over on her. But that's kind of what happens, and he effectively reveals that Ursa, she, like, I didn't kill her. She should be still alive, probably out there. I don't know for sure because I don't care about her. But it's this hope that it gives Zuko that his mother is out there. And, he manages to escape, but I suppose it's this thing in the back of his mind, okay, deal with the war and Ozai first and what's going on here. But then immediately I can search for my mother. And that's such a cool reveal that happens here. Obviously that's adding in stuff from a comic that came out many years later. I think it was 5 years after the series ended. So clearly there was no real intent immediately after the series ended to approach the story. So there's this weird thing just with the series itself from like 2005 to 2008. They set up this plot and had no real attempt to deal with it or explore the topic. So that's always been a bit of a weird one where, like, obviously the big cliffhanger thing in the last episode is like, where's my mother? And that's kind of the transition point for, like, that's basically where the Search comic begins, kind of going off that, and the result of what Ozai actually says to Zuko. But where was the intent to actually do it? And maybe there was plans, obviously, like Mike and Brian have said little bits and pieces about they at one point wanted to do a movie covering the Zuko Ursa stuff, but we don't really know about when the timing for that was meant to be. Was it like immediately afterwards, or was there a break of a few years, or what? But I think what we roughly know is that the comics kind of in a way started because of like the rejection about like the animated movie type thing. But again, the specifics behind that are kind of lost over, like, there's a little bit in one interview here says this thing, and so on. But yeah, that's I think more or less everything in this episode. The result obviously is that the Team Avatar, the extended Team Avatar, is going to the Western Air Temple to kind of hide out for the time being. Zuko's following them in his war balloon, but he's on their side now. He's going there with the intent of joining them. So immediately the setup is like, there's going to be an awesome episode of Zuko trying to join the group next time out. And then the Fire Nation are just going to be completing their final preparations for what's going on. I suppose the other one thing I didn't mention was Iroh. Zuko goes to free Iroh, but he's already out. And the guard there says that he was a one-man army, he broke himself out, that it was it's the most amazing kind of thing that he's ever seen. To this day, we still don't really know what exactly happened, because there's obviously two interpretations. One is that the reason he did all the training to become super muscly was that it was to ultimately break the bars himself, which I don't know if it seems crazy the way the bars are bent that he actually managed to do that, or else he waited until the Eclipse had just come back and just broke himself out then. But it's hard to really know what exactly happened. I think there was a little bit too much mystery around what was going on here. But it has to be one of those things. I think that making Iroh like strong enough to bend metal is a bit much, but is that the interpretation we're even meant to have? I'm not sure. But either way, Iroh has escaped on his own, and what's he kind of up to, I suppose, is the idea. Why did he choose this moment to leave, and why did he not like wait around for Zuko, or what? So there's a lot of these things going on here, but just overall great mystery added into the episode, and just great setup. Like it's Zuko basically making the decision we had hoped he had made, like, towards the end of book 2, and he's finally made it properly this time, and it's just now, after all the betrayals, that like extra betrayal, will the group allow him to join the group? But that's been the review for The Invasion, Day of Black Sun Part 2, The Eclipse. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were in the episode, as well as what I had to say about it. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.